You join us today at TVS's test track at their manufacturing facility in Hosur, and we're here to ride a very exciting product both for the company and for us enthusiasts. It's a new Ntorq, and it's not just an updated Ntorq 125, it's a new Ntorq 150. Now, there is a lot going on here, and it's both new as well as familiar. So let's start off with the design aspect, because that's where you're going to see the big amount of change. The face is completely different. It's got this new 4-pod. These are LED projector headlamps. There's 2 of them for high beam, 2 of them for low beam. It's all one unit that's behind the scowl, and it really gives the bike its visual identity. Something else that's really interesting is this is a large panel, and this side panel is also very large, and these 2 panels come together to give the Ntorq 150 more of a sense of presence, and you notice it more when you come from the front. And of course, when we're talking about the front, how can we not talk about these, their wings? Now, I know there's going to be plenty of jokes out there about it, and I'll make a few of my own, but TVS actually tells us that they haven't just stuck on something visual. This has gone through CFD analysis. There is a particular way the wind is split by this point and how it is led over this wing. This wing does actually have a bit of an aerofoil shape. It curves upwards, so it is a real wing. What is it going to do on a scooter that tops out at 100 kilometers an hour? I don't know. Maybe it'll give you more downforce when you're riding through Bhendi Bazaar. I don't know. But it's there, it's on a scooter, it's wings. If you like wings, you'll be happy. If you don't, I think it blends into the design pretty well. It doesn't offend me. It's there, it's all right. But when you move over to the side, you'll see that this is rather more familiar to the Ntorq 125. The panels are completely different, but it's instantly visually identifiable. And TVS says that they purposely did that, because if they wanted to, they could have made this look completely different. But the Ntorq is a really powerful brand right now, and they want that sense of identity. They've achieved that with the side, and they've definitely achieved it with the rear as well. There are new LED DRLs at the back. Again, very Ntorq, but also fresh. And fresh is something that the Ntorq needed, because its design hasn't changed in about 7 years since it's been out on sale. So that is what the visual element is about. There's also the ergonomic element, and the big change here is that it's got a wider handlebar. Now, this doesn't have that typical scooter cowl up front. It is a bit of a naked motorcycle style handlebar, and slightly wider than before. Feels like it's slightly higher up as well, because these body panels have now come up, and the Ntorq has always had great ergonomics for tall people. This one continues because there is no issue with it hitting the knees. You can take nice tight U-turns on it. So if you're someone tall, that is good news. But if you're someone short, the good news continues, because underneath here is effectively an Ntorq platform. The chassis is more or less the same. It's just a few strengthening bits here and there, but the chassis rake angle, trail, the wheelbase is the same as the 125. It has the same 12-inch wheels, the same tires. So that sense of familiarity is there, and you do feel like you're on an Ntorq, because the Ntorq really had comfortable seating, and this one does too. One thing I was a little apprehensive about when I first sat on it is that this extension out here, there's a little cubby on the left and some housing for the key. I was worried that this was going to be hitting my knee, but for today, in the couple of hours that we've ridden the scooter, it's not been a problem, and that's because the seat is so well shaped that it doesn't force you forward like on many other scooters. So I am a tall person, and I'm on the upper limit of this being an issue. If you're really tall, let's say 6'2", 6'3", maybe more, you might have a point where your knee fouls with the key and maybe even turns it off. So that is something for you to consider. But for most people, this will be a comfortable scooter, and that applies to shorter people as well, because the seat height is the same as the Ntorq 125, so there's no surprises there. So the chassis underneath is really very similar to the Ntorq 125. The engine also finds its roots in the Ntorq 125 engine. This is still a 3-valve air-cooled engine, and what TVS has done is they've increased the bore and the stroke to take it up to 150cc. They also tell us they've done a lot of work into improving cooling. It is still an air-cooled engine, but the cooling function within that engine has been worked on, and they say that the NVH and refinement has also improved. Power and torque figures are actually quite good. It's about 13.2 horsepower and 14.2 Newton meters of torque, and that torque figure is including TVS's hybrid iGo boost, which is something we've seen in the Jupiter already, where through the battery system, they scavenge a little bit of power and they can give it to you in short boosts. You can get 2 boosts, which is not something you really feel on the track out here, but you do feel it in the city. We have experienced a Jupiter one time in the city, and you can feel the scooter surging forward a little more energetically, being aided by that boost. It won't last very long, and after you use it 2 times, it takes about 2 minutes to recharge the system, but it's a good thing to have. And in this case, it adds about 0.7 Nm, which is small, but going by the Jupiter, it's noticeable. So that 14.2 Nm figure includes the iGo boost. To give you some frame of reference, that's actually slightly more power than the new Aprilia SR 175, and it's slightly more torque than the Yamaha Aerox 155. And those are good figures. It's more powerful than the Yamaha FZ Hybrid, which says good things for this scooter and bad things of what the Yamaha has become, but that's a different story. Performance-wise, the Ntorq has always been energetic and fun, and this one feels similar to the Ntorq 125 when you put it in its standard mode, which is the basic riding mode. It's quick. Even in standard mode, it will eventually hit top speed, which TVS says is 104. If you really crouch down, I saw up to 108, 109. But the more relevant thing is that you can get to 80, 90, 100, sit at those speeds without real stress coming through from the engine. It feels comfortable. It's actually smooth throughout, no matter what cruising speed you hold, and you'll only feel a slight judder from the engine at about 30, 40 kilometers an hour. It's probably something to do with the CVT tuning at that point. But in terms of refinement, TVS has done a really impressive job here, because they've managed to keep that exciting, burbly sound that the Ntorq was always famous for, but they've also improved the smoothness that you as a rider feel. There's little to no vibration anywhere. The fueling is also beautifully smooth. It responds very smoothly, very predictably, whether you're going flat out or you're just suddenly accelerating. The calibration has been done really well, and that applies to both street mode and race mode. Race mode definitely brings in a little more performance. The TVS test track sort of hides these things because it's a very long straight followed by a U-turn and then a long fast corner. So you don't get to experience acceleration so much, but this does feel like it's going to be a quick, energetic, exciting scooter to ride while also having great refinement and polish, and I think they've done a great job with the powertrain. Speaking of the exhaust sound, it has a silent start, which is always nice. And it's that typical deep Ntorq burbly note, which is always elevated the riding experience. They've carried it forward in the 150. Performance-wise, I think they've done a really good job, and the same thing really applies to the way this rides, because as you would expect, it's not changed dramatically from the Ntorq in terms of how it handles and how it steers. TVS tells us that the suspension has been slightly tuned. It's now slightly heavier spring rates, and they've also ramped up the damping to compensate for that. Now, the Ntorq was always this super soft, squishy thing that felt very comfortable at lower speeds, and it felt stable enough at high speeds, although you could tell that it was a soft scooter that was going at a quick pace. Over here, it still seems to convey that experience. We'll have to take it back to Mumbai, where the roads are terrible, and really bounce it around and see what it's like. I don't think that the riding experience has changed dramatically in terms of how comfortable it is. It might feel a little more settled and with less movement, but when we go through the corner section out here, it's quite fast. You enter at about 100 and you just hold a long radius corner, and you can feel that the scooter is moving around. But even though the suspension is soft and it's moving around, it's really very stable. There is no sense of a lack of confidence. Is it going to be okay? And when you're carrying a good amount of pace and you're leaned over, you can actually start scraping these side panels. The stand may even scrape down. It happened a few times, but the scooter feels really confidence-inspiring, and that is something that's really appreciable. Why has TVS not gone to 14-inch wheels? This was the first question asked them today. I think it's a good question, because 14-inch wheels generally give you more stability. 14-inch wheels also elevate the look of the scooter, they elevate the riding experience, they make it a more stable feeling thing. But TVS's explanation is that Ntorq customers out there, and there are lakhs of them, in fact they've crossed 1 million units some time ago. Those customers love the agility of the Ntorq, and they didn't want to take that away, because bigger wheels would mean more weight, would change the wheelbase, would change the way the scooter handles, and they didn't want to do that. And based on how much fun we've had here today, I'm okay with that. This is still going to be a nimble, agile thing. It changes direction with such little effort required. You can just give the handlebar a little push and it turns in beautifully. It really is very agile but also full of confidence, and that's why we've always enjoyed riding the Ntorq, and the 150 just elevates that experience. Part of what goes with that riding experience are the tires and the brakes that TVS gives you. These are Remoras. They're like what you get on the Ntorq 125, but again, they say there's small developments that have gone into the tires. This morning, they took about a lap or two to get a little bit of warmth and give me a little more of a connected, confident feeling. But once that happened, I was happy to lean the scooter all over, let it scrape, let it do its thing. The tires do a great job. Braking is also very good. It's the same disc and drum setup that you'll get on the 125, but because this is a larger engine, it has to have ABS. It's single channel ABS. It works really well. We were testing the brakes, just see how hard it can be, and jam on the front brake, the rear comes up, but there's no horrible intrusion on the front ABS on this high grip surface. So the ABS calibration seems to be very good. One of the few riding, it's not even a complaint, it's an observation, is that the rear brake tends to lock a little easily. It could be because the front brake is doing such a good job that you've put the weight on the front, there's less weight on the rear, so it locks easily. But I felt like someone who's not very confident with the braking might end up using the rear more, can lock a little easily. It's something TVS could improve by maybe reducing the performance at the rear. They'll have to look into it. Not a particularly serious issue, but in a place like Mumbai where the roads are very slippery, you might find yourself in a situation where it is easy to lock the rear brake. Safety-wise, ABS is not the only thing you're getting. You also get traction control in here. Again, today I never noticed it functioning. Maybe on a surface with loose gravel on it or a hidden oil slick, it could step in to help you out. It's lurking in the background. It's not ruining your riding experience, but it's nice to have it. Now let's move on to factors of convenience, usability. Again, very similar to the Ntorq 125. What's new is that you get this front cubby out here. There's a little drain hole at the bottom as well, so it shouldn't pool up with water. You continue to get a multi-function key, which opens the boot. Same size boot as the 125, same size fuel tank. Nothing much has changed out there. You also have a remote opening fuel filler cap at the back. Speaking of fuel, we've asked TVS what's the story there, and they tell us that in their internal tests, this engine returns about 4 kpl less than the Ntorq 125, which for the added performance that you're getting, the added refinement, the added rideability, I think is a fair trade-off. We will get the scooter in Mumbai, we will put it through our own series of tests and we'll see what it's like. And we'll also tell you what happens when you ride aggressively. How drastically does the fuel consumption increase when you ride like this? We'll give you that information. But for now, 4 kpl less than the 125 really doesn't seem so bad. Other aspects of the Ntorq 125 that I really like, I'm really liking what they've done with the entire cockpit area for the rider in terms of what you see and what you interact with. The levers are very nice. They are 3-step adjustable. They have a nice powder-coated black finish. There is a rear brake clasp for when you park it, which is a really nice thing to have for a scooter. And I think they've done a great job with the switchgear as well. This is very similar looking switchgear to what you'll get with things like the RR310 and the RTR310. Fantastic looking switchgear. And you have a trigger style pass beam switch, which is very rare to find in a scooter and very helpful on our roads. Now there are 2 variants available, and the main difference between them is in the display. On the top model, you get a full color TFT display. They say they've designed it to look like a gaming console, and it's packed with connectivity. There is a whole sheet of connectivity options that have been shown to us. So if you're into Bluetooth connectivity, call assists, last park location, all these sort of things, it'll even give you sports alerts apparently. So there's a lot of that in there, which is available on the top version. The base version also gives you a pretty good screen. It is the same screen from the top spec version of the Ntorq 125, which is basically a sort of split screen. There's LCD on one side and a small TFT on the other side. And it gets different switchgear. It doesn't look as nice as this, but it has the same functionality. You also get hazard lights on the base version. You also get the trigger style pass beam switch. So that is very nice. I know I've been saying very nice, very nice, very nice. What have I not liked? Well, to be honest, it's really very little. I think that the finish on this plastic piece out here is a little rough looking, and it's something I can see very often. And this particular scooter makes a bit of a squeaking sound in the plastics. It's not something I notice in many others, but it's something to look out for. But beyond that, I think quality, fit, finish is really very good for a scooter in this price point. Another small thing is that the iGo boost function is only available in the top race mode, and you can't use it if you're in street mode. Now, street mode restricts the power to just under 11 horsepower, which means that those who want slightly better fuel efficiency in the city would end up using street. But having a boost function for quick overtakes in the city would also be helpful, which is why it would have been nice if this feature was available in both modes. Speaking of price point, I don't have the prices as of now. TVS will announce the prices in a couple of days' time. They will be out by the time you see this video. Now, the Ntorq 125 has always been a lovely scooter. It's just starting to feel a little old, and this breathes life into that platform while also elevating the performance, elevating the premiumness, elevating the features that you get, and they've really done a great job with taking the Ntorq on into the future.